Acor by Night, who was fined £267 for dropping a cigarette outside a job centre, and an HS2 protester who spent 16 days up a tree at Parliament were among 60 people arrested over M25 roadblock chaos. Steve Gower, 54, from Gloucester, is unemployed but describes himself as a volunteer advocate for the homeless and is an active Unite Union campaigner. He was arrested alongside 60 other Extinction Rebellion protesters today who blocked 5 junctions of the M25 for up to 4 hours. Last summer, Gower was ordered to pay £267 by a magistrate after he dropped a cigarette in the street while visiting a job centre. He said that the fine spiraled because he couldn't afford the reduced fine of £75 and was told there was no opportunity to pay in installments. And he was joined at the M25 road blockage by Eli Rose, 26, who spent 16 days in a tree last September to protest the HS2 rail link. Ms. Rose lived in the tree in Parliament Square because she cannot bear knowing her potential future children will be born into a world where they will have to battle through food shortages and drought. She said that police didn't let anyone pass food or water to her for 2 days, which made her feel ill, but she added, some of the protesters were doctors and enabled antibiotics to be tied onto a rope. The pair were among 60 other Extinction Rebellion activists who were arrested during the mayhem along the M25 today. Obstruction of a British road without lawful authority or excuse is an offence under Section 137 of the Highways Act 1980, with a punishment of a fine and up to 6 months in prison. Yet at junction 14 of the M25, it took 4 hours to arrest the activists and reopen the road at one of the busiest stretches of motorway in the UK. And the failure of police to immediately arrest climate change protesters sparked fury today as a video emerged of officers protecting the law-breaking activists while dragging away an irate and incredulous driver who decided to take the law into his own hands. The unnamed motorist tried to pull activists off the slip road, believed to be at junction 3 for Swanley, Kent, as another man repeatedly yells at a policeman, "I just don't understand why you want move them." The driver trying to break up the protest and tear down banners was then dragged away by officers who then returned to guarding the members of Insulate Britain, a new offshoot of Extinction Rebellion. There was also disruption and long queues at junction 6 for Godstone in Surrey, 14 for London Heathrow Airport, 20 for Kings Langley in Hertfordshire and 31 for Purfleet in Essex. There have been 92 arrests so far, with police again accused of being too scared of tackling climate change activists. One critic tweeted the video from This Morning with the message, "Public servants stand by while the public do the job they are paid for." This BL***dy country at times is just beyond. They were happy to arrest people for going for a walk or stopping on a bench for a coffee. Another wrote, "If the police won't enforce the law, then that leaves no choice but to do it ourselves." These climate change imbeciles have no legal basis upon which to block the highway, especially as such nonsense could potentially hold up emergency services and cost lives. Officers from Kent, Surrey, Essex, Hertfordshire and the Metropolitan Police dealt with the incidents that caused delays of up to 3 hours at rush hour. Many questioned why it took up until midday to break up protests that began at 8 a.m. A former chief constable said the protest was extraordinarily dangerous, while motorists, some of whom were stuck in traffic for 3 hours with young children, said it was madness, with one urging police, "Move them." Drivers tried to remove a group at Kings Langley as queues formed this morning. Hertfordshire police then arrived, but instead of arresting him immediately, around 50 officers guarded the group and set up a diversion. As well as taking aim at the police, drivers caught up in the chaos said that any sympathy they had for eco-protesters had now gone after they targeted drivers trying to get to work rather than the government who make policies on the environment. Despite the very public action this morning, a petition for the UK government to fund and require the insulation of all social housing by 2025 had reached just 1,300 signatures by 2:30 p.m. Of the senior members of Insulate Britain, only unemployed Corbynista Steve Gower, 54, from Gloucester, has been involved in today's protests. He has been arrested, the organisation says. A total of 92 people were arrested in connection with the incident, sparking chaos across 5 different police constabularies. Surrey police detained 36 people across 2 demonstrations at Junction 6 near Godstone and Junction 14 by Heathrow Airport. They remain in custody on suspicion of public nuisance and willful obstruction offences after officers were called just before 8 a.m. A spokesman said, "A total of 36 people have been arrested after we were called to protests at Junction 6 and Junction 14 of the M25 which were reported just before 8 a.m. today, September 13. The protesters were arrested on suspicion of public nuisance and willful obstruction offences and are currently in custody." Protesters from Insulate Britain were at the 2 locations as part of a coordinated protest which has also affected other junctions of the motorway. Diversions were set up while officers dealt with the situation. Both Surrey junctions of the M25 are now fully reopened and we would like to thank motorists for their patience while we dealt with the situation. Officers from the Met Police arrested a further 14 people for highway obstruction after they also quickly responded to people blocking the Poyle interchange at Junction 14 near Heathrow Airport just after 8 a.m. A spokesman said, "The Met chaired a cross-force and stakeholder meeting with a number of agencies today to share information, and coordinate activity to ensure disruption was minimized. We are working with colleagues at Heathrow Airport to establish what, if any, impact the protest had on the airport." The coordinated demonstration on the roads network saw Hertfordshire police arrest 18 people in connection with the protest at the Kings Langley interchange near Junction 20 for Hemel Hempstead after demonstrators were removed for ignoring officers' requests to move. Superintendent Adam Wilmot, of Herts Police, said, "We were called to reports of a protest at around 8 a.m. today, Monday 13 September, and quickly mobilized resources to the scene." The M25 was closed westbound at Junction 20, resulting in congestion and delays on both the M25 and the A41. Protesters ignored police requests to move location, so we took robust action to enable roads to be reopened and to remove the protesters causing obstructions. Our officers dealt with the disruption as quickly as possible, reopening routes for local businesses and residents.